Well, here we go, lads, and this is the big news coming out of St James's Park is that Sandro Tonali looks like he could be on his way to Spurs if Spurs can agree the fee with Newcastle United, and Newcastle are only interested in fees over 100 million bare minimum. And of course, there also news on, of course, Steve Nickson, head of recruitment, been at Newcastle United for a long time, and he will be departing from Newcastle United to go and join West Ham, of course, down in the Championship. And that is purely because of the reasons which I will get into in this video of what I think is the reasons behind why, of course, Steve Nickson is leaving the club. And, of course, Tino Livramento has had a massive injury scare, and it looks like he is, of course, suffered a hamstring injury, and we will get into that, of course, in this video as well. Not to mention also the fact that Newcastle United have agreed a front of shirt sponsor deal with, of course, Nufc hydration, which we will get into in this video as well. But let's go straight back to talking about, of course, Sandro Tonali first, because that is the big news. Sandro Tonali, of course, an exclusive coming from Fabrizio Romano, and he's saying that Spurs have entered the race to sign Sandro Tonali. Roberto De Zerbi wants Tonali as the new star for the midfield. Ideal. Of course, Romano is seen to step up to Spurs level. I think it's a step down, basically, to be honest, because when you look at what Spurs have done in the past few seasons and you look at what we've done in the past few seasons, yes, Spurs won themselves a European trophy. We've won a trophy, but Spurs have been battling relegation for the past 2 seasons now. We've been playing some really good football. We've been up there, been in the Champions League. We've always been at the top end of the table in the past few seasons. So for me, it is a step down. But at the end of the day, if that's where Sandro Tonali wants to go, as long as the fee is good, then, at the end of the day, we're not going to stand in the way of the player. We're going to allow him to move on like we have done with the likes of Anthony Gordon, like we have done with the likes of course, Alexander Isak last season. We're not going to stand in the way as long as the fee is what we want out of the deal. But not just Romano reporting it, of course. There's plenty of other people reporting it, like David Ornstein as well. He, however, is saying that Spurs want Sandro Tonali from Newcastle United. Positive talks between Tottenham and the 26-year-old, but there's been no contact yet with Newcastle. The transfer fee is the bigger challenge than the player deal. Yes, they can agree terms with Sandro Tonali, but it's when it comes down to how much they're going to pay for Sandro Tonali. That is where it is a stumbling block at the minute on the deal for Spurs. And any Spurs fans watching, let us know what you think on this, of course, and fellow Newcastle United fans as well. Let us know what you think, of course, about this deal. Do you think it's a good deal? Sandro Tonali moving away from Newcastle United. Like I say, as long as we get the fee that we want, and we'll move him on. 26 years old as well. If we can move him on, and then we can bring in, say, somebody like Lamine Camara, who is a lot younger, and we're not having to pay as much to bring him in. We're going to be making a profit on the deal for Sandro Tonali. We're going to be getting a natural number 6 as well, which is something that we really do need in the team. And when you look at, how Sandro Tonali played last season, not being disrespectful by any means, Sandro Tonali is a really good player. But when you look at, how we played with Sandro Tonali in that midfield and no Bruno next to him, you could see, who the real star in the team is. It is Bruno. Bruno is the real star in that midfield. And Sandro Tonali, he did his best. But you could see in the game against Barcelona, he didn't track back. It cost we, and if we can get a decent fee and move Sandro Tonali on, and like I say, bring in somebody like Lamine Camara for a lot less money in fee-wise, and the wages would obviously not be nearly as much as Sandro Tonali is on neither, I don't think, to be honest. But it would be a really good deal all around, and it would suit the project that we are building right now. with Ross Wilson. We are looking at bringing in that younger elite level players who are going to be, the big household names in the years to come. And of course, currently right now with the likes of Victor Munoz being linked with, and that looks pretty close to being done as well. Just waiting probably on the officials, as I've said in previous video, on of course that information. But like I say, not just Fabrizio Romano, David Ornstein's reporting it, Ben Jacobs is reporting it, and when these guys are reporting, you know that there's some sort of background to it. You know that they're being paid to promote this news. So that means obviously this is a deal that is going to end up eventually probably being done, as we're seeing with the Isak deal last season, when the media's rallying behind it and getting paid to push this news, then eventually the pressure's let out and eventually the player does move on, but not for a low fee. It has to be for the fee that we want. And I'm adamant about that. I'm absolutely adamant about that, and I'm sure the club will be adamant about that as well. It has to be for the fee that we want, which is bare minimum 100 million for Sandro Tonali. Probably a sell-on fee added in there as well, I would expect. But let's move on to talk about, of course, Steve Nickson. Of course, Ornstein saying Newcastle United head of recruitment Steve Nickson leaving the club. Englishman has informed NUFC of the decision. Timing still to be confirmed, but all parties comfortable with the situation. Move to the Championship on agenda after 15 years at, of course, St James's Park. That's what Ornstein's saying. Then we've got Craig Hope coming out and talking about it as well. And Craig Hope, of course, saying that Newcastle will replace Nickson with external appointment. Recruitment chief has told the club he is leaving for a championship job, which is, of course, West Ham. Talks ongoing, but NUFC want Nickson to work until the end of the window and then leave, which is acceptable. At the end of the day, you will have information that, of course, can't be given away. And at the end of the day, as we know with all appointments in these kind of roles, there's always a gardening leave anyway. So by the time he does finish his gardening leave, he's probably got maybe a couple of days before the window probably shuts. And, that's just not enough time for him to do his job at West Ham. So he might as well stay on at Newcastle United until the end of this transfer window, this summer transfer window. And then, of course, go on to West Ham to start his new role there, which by the sounds like he's going to go from being a head of recruitment for us to go to West Ham, where he's probably going to end up being their director of football. So, fair play. At the end of the day, Nickson's done a lot for Newcastle United over the years, and the guy deserves, the chance to now step up to that next level in the director of football role. And of course see what he can do with that and move, of course, to West Ham, where he's going to get the chance, to be the main man there on the recruitment side of things, instead of just being the head of recruitment, being a scout for Newcastle United and all that. He's going to be able to, run the show pretty much down at West Ham. And of course, not just Craig Hope talking about it, not just David Ornstein talking about, but Mark Douglas as well. As you can see there, good eye for the talent, being active in South America for a while, brought in Joe Linton among others, was put in charge of outgoings last summer, though people always spoke highly of him, and departure described as amicable, and feeling him moving on might be inevitable with the restructure of the recruitment overseen by Ross Wilson, and it sounds like he has got a good offer to go to. And like I said, it sounds like he is going to get to be, of course, the director of football down at West Ham, and you just can't turn that offer down. Yes, it is probably a step down coming from Newcastle United to go to West Ham, but at the end of the day, he's at least going to be taking a step up in the role that he'll be taking in football, and he'll be doing, of course, as I've mentioned, the director of football role. Anyway, moving on from that, we'll talk about now the front of shirt sponsor, and it is, of course, a 3-year deal, 60 million over 3 years, 80 million all told, because there's also going to be other little things in there as well, including an incoming club drink deal with, of course, Nufc Hydration. There's going to be an official drink apparently that's going to be coming out, so that'll be interesting to see what happens with that one. But the deal is worth apparent in total 80 million over 3 years. That is more than the 70 million deal that we had with Salah. And it's just nice to see, you know, that we are going to have a front shirt sponsor on the front of the shirt. Obviously, the shirt went on launch on the 10th of this month, and there was no front shirt sponsor put on, of course, the shirt at that time. But the club have said that if you've went and bought a shirt on the 10th when the launch happened, that you can take the shirt along once, of course, the sponsor is announced. You can take your shirt along at the shop, and it will, of course, be transferred onto the shirt free of charge. That is what the club has said. So if anybody's bought a Newcastle United home shirt for this new season, and you want to get the front shirt sponsor put on it, then just take it along to the shop or wherever you bought it from. Of course, probably take it at the club shop for the best chance, and get the front shirt sponsor put on there free of charge by the club. But looking at it, you know, like I say, really, really good deal. We're getting 60 million over 3 years, 80 million all told, new club drinking coming, and of course there's bonuses and good deals and all that different stuff happening as well, with, of course, the sponsorship. And then, of course, there's a training kit sponsor talks ongoing as well. Nufc Hydration are just going to only be the sleeve sponsor for the training kits, but there is still talk on who will be the training kit sponsors, and it looks like so far a lot of people are thinking it's going to be Whoop, which is, of course, the company that makes smart bands, of course, these sort of things for to check heart rates, all that different stuff. If it is that, then, you know, that'll be really good, because I have seen some mock-ups of what it will look like on the training gear, and I've got to say, it does look pretty good, to be honest. And there was a lot of talk saying that that could have possibly been the front of shirt sponsor, but it turns out that it is Nufc Hydration who is going to be the front of shirt sponsor. And I'm quite happy with, you know, the news that's going around at the minute. I'm really happy with what we're doing in the window. We're moving really fast in the window as well. But let us know your thoughts, you know, down in the comments below. Like I say, about the Sandro Tonali deal to Spurs, I'm all right with it happening as long as we get a decent fee for Sandro Tonali. It's got to be bare minimum 100 million. There's got to be a sell-on clause added in there, I'd expect as well. That's what Ross Wilson appears to be doing so far in this transfer window. And, you know, we'll want to see more of that, because we should be putting sell-on fees in there. If the player, you know, will moves from the club that we sell him to, then we want to get a cut out of that deal. Because we've put a lot of work into these players, so we should be entitled to that cut out of the player as well, when he does move on to another club for even more money again. But let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Hit like, share, subscribe to the channel, and let us know how you like the videos as well. So far, different style of doing them, and hopefully you do enjoy them, and I'll see you all in the next one. However, lads.